My question is this. Vince McMahon took a truth serum and you could ask him one question. What would you ask him? For the sake of the question, he can't give you half-truths or kayfabe or anything. And he also wants to know if you could apply this to Bischoff, Heyman, Jim Hurt, or Bill Watts. What would you ask them?
For God's sake, what in the world? No, that... See, you can't just... That's an essay question here. I'd have to do research on something like this to get all those people down. Well, Jim Hurt, he was in there. I'd probably ask him something, his social security number or whatever, so I could steal his identity and pay myself back for all the money he cost the fucking wrestling business by draining his bank accounts. Or possibly we just boil him in oil and sell the fat for soap. Get it over with that way. What would one question I would at least ask Vince? It's got to be a yes or no truth serum, right? Because they can't go into fucking explanation when they're drugged, or is this? How does this work? Are you a kid? I know you know about chemistry.
I think we could just apply whatever rules we want to this, but it's a truth serum.
Well, I mean, I don't want to fucking do anything that is in some way phony or not be possible. We discussed this question of when we've drugged Vince McMahon for us to tell the truth. My God, I don't possibly the absolute truth on what happened between his father and fucking Buddy Rogers in 1963.
That's a good one. That's actually a really good one. I didn't think of that.
If he would have been around.
Would he have?
He would have heard these rumblings. 1963. If he was hanging out with Jerry Graham, yes, he would have. Because that would have been years previous to that. So I mean, he would have been in the family by that point. See, something of awe-inspiring. I've just blown your mind. The true story.
No, I'm trying to think about when he would have been around his father, because Jerry Graham first arrived in New York in the late 50s.
Yeah,
actually mid 50s, but then his big run with Eddie was, I think started in 57, 58 maybe, and then I know he was in and out in the early 60s. But when the whole Buddy Bruno thing happened, I don't know if Vince Jr. was with his father at that time. I tend to think he wasn't, actually.
Well, let's think about this. How old is Vince today?
Didn't he just have his birthday? Did he turn 70?
73.
Okay,
born in 1944. He would have been 19 years old by the time that the match between Rogers and Sammartino happened.
That's true. So maybe.
But even if not, if he was around, it was still fresh. He heard it from a person who was in on it. Did Rogers really have the heart attack, or did Vince Sr. think he was working? And was Rogers trying to take over the territory and sabba-dabba-dabba-da? That would be good. Instead of all this petty modern day bickering, some real historic shit.
Well, speaking of petty bickering, I'm going to ask you to apply this to Paul Heyman. What would you ask Paul Heyman if you can get the truth out of him one time?
Oh, good Lord. I mean, that would right there would be pay-per-view. You could actually market that. You could say, ladies and gentlemen, live on pay-per-view, Paul Heyman will be presented on stage and asked a question that will be drawn at random from those of you calling 1-800 whatever the fuck and paying $1.95 to ask this question. And he's going to be administered a truth serum. There is absolutely no physically possible way that Paul Heyman can lie in answer to this question. $59.95 in HD right there. I guarantee you that would rival McGregor and Mayweather in terms of business.
And what would be the big question? What's the big selling point?
What would anything? Just Paul telling the truth. I don't think any question that you could ask could actually follow up. Just the tantalizing thing of Paul Heyman starring in the movie Liar. Wasn't that the premise? Was that the one where he couldn't tell a lie?
Liar.
Liar, Jim Carrey. Liar, starring Paul Heyman. That would be a goddamn box office hit. The things that would come out of his mouth if he was forbidden, because he's such an eloquent speaker. And much of it is bullshit, but it's so entertaining, as I've said so many times, bullshit, and such eloquent bullshit, and such dramatic bullshit. But I think he should be. I'm not gonna give anything away. I think they should hire me as a writer on that project, and it would make millions. It'd be a franchise like the Fast and the Furious. Just every 6 months they could bring out a movie. The premise is Paul Heyman has to tell the truth. My God, he'd be the biggest box office attraction since Francis X. Bushman.